The super typhoon Fung-Wong, locally called Uwan, reached the eastern coast of the Philippines, turning the archipelago into a long emergency corridor. Over 1 million people were preemptively moved to schools, sports halls, and community centers converted into shelters, while the provisional toll reports at least 2 victims in a landscape of widespread devastation, but with a rapid response that has limited the human losses compared to the previous storm. Calmaegi, which only days ago caused around 250 deaths and left open wounds in coastal and mountain communities, the most severe impact is recorded in Aurora Province, on the large island of Luzon, where gusts have steadily exceeded 185 kilometers per hour with peaks up to 230, accompanied by downpours capable of unloading 200 millimeters of rain in a few hours, bending billboards, ripping off light roofs, toppling mature trees, and snapping power lines with intermittent blackouts, complicating communications in many municipalities. Along the eastern shoreline, storm surges have flooded roads near the beaches, carrying sand, logs, and debris, while water entered the lower floors of the most exposed houses, forcing entire families to climb to lofts and rooftops awaiting rescuers, and on the island of Catanduanes, waves overtopped seawalls and rock barriers, choking coastal arteries and isolating some barangays. Across Luzon, authorities ordered the closure of schools and government offices and the suspension of many non-essential activities, including short-haul navigation, while at the main airports, nearly 300 flights have been canceled and dozens rescheduled, with thousands of passengers camped between chairs and corridors. In inland cities, sirens marked during the night the start of targeted evacuations from areas at risk of landslides and sudden floods, with rivers running high and turbid and slopes waterlogged after days of precipitation, and civil protection teams positioned sandbags in front of markets, clinics, and transport hubs to limit water ingress. Hospitals activated continuity plans ensuring generators, dry triage points, and stocks of saline, while ambulances and 444 vehicles follow alternative routes to reach chronic patients and expectant mothers. In the shelters, teachers and volunteers register families, distribute blankets, rice, water, and hygiene kits, set aside spaces for the elderly and children, set up play corners and provide information on how to recognize live wires, avoid stagnant water, and report missing persons. Along the main arteries, checkpoints guide humanitarian convoys through fallen branches and poles, while technical crews inspect secondary bridges and restore the most vital stretches to reconnect provincial capitals. The population, still shaken by the grim bulletins from Calmaegi, has responded with discipline to evacuation orders, protecting documents, medicines, and a few essential belongings, and fishermen left their boats secured to inner docks, with coastal fleets grounded until further notice. In the countryside, farmers secured equipment and raised supplies, worried about rice fields nearing harvest and flooded gardens, while herders and forest rangers try to bring livestock back to dry ground. During the core hours of the system, S-Passage, there were widespread falls of trees and metal sheets, shattered windows, torn-off signs, but also acts of readiness that prevented worse outcomes. Local radio stations stayed on air with emergency generators, apartment buildings organized relays to carry water and food to upper floors. Youth groups cleared storm drains to speed runoff. In Luzon's urban areas, traffic remains limited, with advice not to travel unless urgent, and mixed teams of army, police, and firefighters map critical points, clear carriageways, and reach isolated homes. Health authorities recommend boiling water before use, avoiding contact with potentially contaminated floodwaters, and watching for signs of hypothermia and skin infections, while meteorologists and civil protection update hour by hour the tracks and trajectory of the cyclone to assess when to return to neighborhoods and how to stagger the homecoming. At each lull in the wind, people reappear on thresholds to gauge repairs. Makeshift roofs, with tarps and rope, boarded-up windows, shops raising shutters for a few hours, generators chugging behind buildings. The material toll is heavy. But the organization of evacuees and the promptness of closures have contained the number of victims. And the test now is the aftermath, with street cleanup, network restoration, support for the displaced, and a gradual return to normality in an archipelago that knows the force of sea and wind and that, despite the strain, is already moving to rebuild.